Hey guys, welcome to the EJ Tech Show. I'm Soham and today I'm going to be reviewing the Realme GT 5G. Now this is the company's first smartphone powered by that flagship Snapdragon 888 chipset. So today we're going to see how it really is. Now if you do enjoy the video, consider giving us a thumbs up and do subscribe to the Editor G channel for more tech reviews. Now let's begin with the most striking thing about the Realme GT 5G, which is of course its design. We've got the racing yellow color variant that has a rather flashy appearance with that bright yellow back interrupted with a sort of black racing stripe coming out from the camera module. It's certainly not going to appeal to everyone's taste, so if you do want something more muted, Realme does offer this in two other colors, dashing silver and dashing blue. Personally, I quite like it. I think it gives the phone a unique look and sets it apart from competitors. Plus, the back is finished in vegan leather, which feels nice to the touch and doesn't attract fingerprints or scratches. However, I'm not quite sure how well this bright yellow color will hold up in the longer run, especially when it comes to fighting things like stains and day-to-day abuse. The black stripe down the back breaks the visual bulk of the device, and if you look really carefully, you can see that there's an arrow design that looks rather cool. Considering that Realme is trying to pitch the GT as a flagship killer, it does make sense to go a bit overboard with the styling. Now, despite that over-the-top design, Realme has made sure that the phone is still quite slim at around 9.1mm for this vegan leather model and reasonably light at around 186.5 grams, again for this variant. It's worth noting that the regular finishes are both slightly slimmer and lighter than this racing yellow model. Overall, the Realme GT is quite well built and does feel premium thanks to that special treatment on the back. But I reviewed the more affordable GT Master Edition just last week, and personally I think Realme could have done more to set them apart. While they do look different visually and run different hardware under the hood, they feel relatively the same in the hand. Then again, that difference in hardware matters a lot, but that's something I'll get into later on in this video. The display on the Realme GT gets all the bells and whistles you'd expect in this day and age. It's a 6.43-inch FHD Plus Super AMOLED screen with a 120Hz refresh rate and 360Hz touch sampling rate. Colors are punchy and vibrant, and there's support for HDR10 along with HDR HLG. However, while there is Widevine L1 certification for Netflix, there's no support for HDR playback, which I would have liked to see. Outdoor visibility is fairly decent since this device also gets the same 1000 nits of peak brightness as the Master Edition, and bezels are also mostly uniform apart from a slightly thicker bottom chin. Now the Realme GT sports a triple rear camera setup that includes a 64-megapixel primary sensor, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide sensor, and a dedicated 2-megapixel macro sensor. Now this isn't a completely new setup we're seeing for the first time. We've seen it previously on the Realme X7 Max, and it performs pretty much the same on the Realme GT 5G. Pictures taken in good lighting conditions are clear and colorful, but you can see the image processing trying to boost the colors a bit artificially at times. HDR also tends to be somewhat aggressive, but there is still a good amount of detail from that 64-megapixel sensor. Ultra-wide shots with the GT 5G offer a 119-degree field of view with minimal distortion around the edges. Colors compared to the main sensor are a bit different, and I expected a little more consistency on the image processing front. The third sensor, the dedicated 2-megapixel macro, is one I'm not the biggest fan of. It does get quite close to objects and offers a fair bit of detail, but the 64-megapixel sensor can be used to get better shots at 2x digital zoom. They don't get as close as the macro sensor, but there's much better depth of field and colors are more accurate as well. On the whole, I do wish that the camera setup here was a little bit different from the Realme X7 Max and perhaps included a telephoto sensor instead of that low-resolution 2-megapixel macro sensor, especially since this device is trying to be a flagship killer. When it comes to low-light photography, the dedicated night mode is greatly appreciated, and it does a good job of boosting exposure and retaining detail. On the video front, the GT 5G can shoot 4K footage at up to 60 FPS, which is good to see. There's electronic image stabilization as well, which makes for smoother footage, but it does crop into the frame a slight bit with the ultra steady option enabled. The hole punch camera on the Realme GT 5G is a 16-megapixel sensor, and it produces decent results overall, but it can be a bit inconsistent at times. In outdoor lighting, pictures are sharp and full of detail, and colors are pretty accurate too. However, skin tones in selfies taken indoors are less accurate and details aren't as sharp either. The skin smoothing option is also enabled by default, which certainly doesn't help things. Still, Realme has packed in the fill light feature for low light selfies that turns the screen into a bright white light source in dark situations. Portrait selfies are just about okay, and the camera manages to isolate subjects from the background decently. It's worth noting that the front sensor can take videos at a maximum 1080p, and it would have been good to see a 4K option here. Now this is where the Realme GT 5G really comes into its own, because under the hood this phone packs in that top-of-the-line Snapdragon 888 chipset, and as if that wasn't enough, there's also 12GB of LPDDR5 RAM on this variant, along with 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage. Safe to say, performance from the GT 5G is stellar, with no slowdowns, stutters or lag of any kind. Whether you're multitasking, running heavy apps, or playing graphic-intensive games, the Realme GT absolutely monsters through it all. That 120Hz screen refresh rate and 360Hz touch sampling rate also play a vital role in making the whole experience feel super smooth. Load times for titles like Call of Duty Mobile are as low as they can get, and I played the game on very high graphic settings with max frame rate with no dropped frames or heating issues throughout my usage. Moreover, like with the Master Edition, this phone gets GT mode. With just a touch of a button, the phone tweaks all the settings to give you the maximum performance possible. The screen refresh rate is turned up to 120Hz, visual effects are enabled, and the CPU goes into its most powerful state. But if you want to tweak the performance even further, there's performance modes in the Game Space app, and there's also a gaming focus mode that lets you turn off all notifications, calls, and swipe gestures in one go. Apart from all this, I'm quite glad that Realme has included a wide variety of 5G bands on the Realme GT, which makes this device quite future-proof. The Realme GT runs on Realme UI 2.0 based on Android 11, and coupled with the performance under the hood, the user interface is slick and smooth to use. There's a whole lot of handy features like DC dimming, custom wallpapers, and software-enabled RAM expansion, all of which help better the user experience. Plus, with things like gesture shortcuts, the assistive ball, quick launch, and more, Realme UI 2.0 does offer a whole lot of utility. There is a fair bit of bloatware though, which I was surprised to see at this price point, and I hope Realme starts toning it down on their higher-end devices. Still, third-party apps can be uninstalled pretty easily, so that's good to see. Now, one thing you might be surprised to see on a high-end smartphone in 2021 is a headphone jack, which the Realme GT graciously offers. It also gets a USB-C charging port and dual speakers, which I'm very glad to see. You also get a lightning-fast in-display fingerprint scanner that honestly feels like one of the fastest I've used in recent memory and did not give me any failed inputs throughout my usage. However, the Realme GT does not come with an IP rating or microSD card expansion. Moreover, the dual SIM slot does not come with a rubber gasket for basic ingress protection, and I feel this is something that should have been included at this price point. Now, battery life and charging speed are a few of the redeeming qualities of the Realme GT 5G because it gets a respectably large 4500 mAh unit that supports 65-watt fast charging. In my usage, I got over a day's screen-on time despite long sessions of content watching, browsing the internet, and playing a few graphic-intensive games, all with the screen refresh rate set at 120Hz. What was even more impressive was that the Realme GT took only 30 minutes to go from 1% to 100%, so it's really good for people that don't like plugging in their phone to charge overnight. Just a quick dash in the morning should be enough. So, time to sum up my thoughts on the Realme GT 5G, and in all fairness, it does make a few compromises, especially in the camera department. But that being said, if all you're after is a top-spec phone with top-notch hardware and performance, then the Realme GT 5G is a really good option for the money.